call came on a Tuesday morning while I was grading papers in my cramped Chicago apartment. My grandfather had passed away, and I had inherited his property in Montana. I remembered visiting the ranch once as a kid, endless grasslands, a pristine lake, and mountains that touched the clouds. What I didn't remember was that it was 1,800 acres of prime real estate. 3 weeks later, I stood at the edge of that same lake, briefcase in one hand and my grandfather's old property map in the other. The water sparkled like diamonds under September sun. This was mine now, all of it. The weight of that responsibility settled on my shoulders as I breathed in the pine-scented air. That's when I saw it. Across the lake, where nothing but wilderness should have existed, sat a massive 3-story mansion. Glass and steel gleamed in the afternoon light. A private dock jutted into the water. Manicured lawns rolled down to the shoreline like something from a luxury magazine. My stomach dropped. I pulled out the property map, my hands trembling slightly as I traced the boundary lines with my finger. The mansion sat squarely within my property, about 200 yards inside my border, to be exact. "Can I help you?" I spun around. A woman in her 50s stood behind me. Designer sunglasses perched on her nose, yoga pants that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and an expression that could freeze boiling water. "I'm David Chen," I said, extending my hand. "I inherited this property from my grandfather, Robert Chun." She didn't take my hand. "I'm Patricia Vanderhoff, and you're trespassing on my lakefront." I blinked. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. This is actually my land. All of it, according to the county records and my grandfather's deed." "That's absurd," she cut me off, her voice sharp as broken glass. "I purchased this parcel 3 years ago from a real estate developer. I have the paperwork. I built my home here with all the proper permits." "Ma'am, I don't know what to tell you, but this entire lake and the surrounding property belongs to me. Maybe you should check your document again." Her face flushed red. "I don't need to check anything. I spent $3.6 million building my dream home. Do you think I would do that without making sure I own the land?" "I'm not trying to cause problems," I said, keeping my voice calm despite my racing heart. "But I need to verify the boundaries. My grandfather's estate attorney is expecting me to—" "Your grandfather was a stubborn old man who refused to sell to developers," Patricia snapped. "Maybe he filled your head with stories, but the reality is that I own this property legally. I have documents." "So do I," I said quietly. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Listen to me very carefully. I have connections in this county. My husband sits on the planning commission. My brother-in-law is the district judge. If you think you're going to come here and threaten my home, you're making a terrible mistake." I felt anger flare in my chest, but I swallowed it down. "I'm not threatening anything. I'm just trying to understand what happened here." "What happened," she said, her lips curling into a cold smile, "is that your grandfather's property was subdivided and sold years ago. This section was purchased legally. My home is legal. My ownership is legal. You need to accept that and move on. Then you won't mind if I have a surveyor come out and verify the property lines?" Her expression hardened. "Do whatever you want. You'll be wasting your money. And when you realize I'm right, I expect an apology." She turned and strode back toward her mansion, her blonde ponytail swinging with each aggressive step. I stood there for a long moment, staring at that house. Something was very wrong here. 2 days later, I sat in the office of Margaret Torres, the county surveyor. She had the map spread across her desk, her expression grave. "Mr. Chun," she said slowly, "there's no easy way to say this. That house is absolutely on your property, not even close to the boundary line. It's roughly 200 yards inside your legal perimeter. How did this happen?" I asked. Margaret sighed, removing her glasses to rub her eyes. "From what I can piece together, 3 years ago a man named Derek Sutton approached Mrs. Vanderhoff claiming to represent a development company. He showed her forged documents that appeared to subdivide your grandfather's property. He sold her a parcel that never existed. So she was scammed?" "Essentially, yes. But that doesn't change the legal reality. Your grandfather never sold any portion of this land. Your ownership is uncontested in the county records. Mrs. Vanderhoff built a $3.6 million home on property she never owned. I felt a strange mix of vindication and pity. What happens now? Now you need an attorney, Margaret said, because when Mrs. Vanderhoff finds out about this, things are going to get ugly. Margaret was right. When my attorney sent a certified letter explaining the situation, Patricia's response was immediate and nuclear. She sued me for harassment. She filed complaints with the county, claiming I was trying to steal her property. She went to the local newspaper with a story about how a greedy outsider was trying to destroy a local family's home. But the facts were the facts. 6 months later, we stood in a courtroom. My attorney presented the unbroken chain of title going back 80 years. He presented the survey. He presented the county records. Patricia's attorney tried to argue adverse possession, claiming she'd been there for 3 years and had improved the property. Judge Morrison, not Patricia's brother-in-law, who had recused himself, listened to everything with a stony expression. Mrs. Vanderhoff, the judge finally said, I understand you're the victim of fraud in this situation. You were deceived by Derek Sutton, who is currently being prosecuted for real estate fraud in 3 states. However, your victimization does not transfer ownership of land that you never legally owned. Mr. Chen's title is clear and uncontested. Patricia's face went white, then red. Your Honor, I spent $3.6 million on a home built on someone else's property. The judge interrupted. You have legal recourse against Mr. Sutton for the fraud he committed against you, but you have no claim to Mr. Chen's land. This is insane. Patricia shouted, standing up. You can't just let him take my home. He's not taking anything, Mrs. Vanderhoff. It was never yours to begin with. The judge's gavel came down with a sharp crack. Mr. Chen is a rightful owner. You have 90 days to remove your structure from his property, or he will have the legal right to claim it. The courtroom erupted. Patricia was screaming at her attorney. My hands were shaking. I'd won, but it felt hollow somehow. 3 weeks later, Patricia showed up at my grandfather's old cabin where I was staying. She looked different, smaller somehow, without the designer clothes and the attitude. She just looked tired. I'm not here to fight, she said quietly. Can we talk? We sat on the porch overlooking the lake. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I lost everything, she finally said. My marriage, my savings. Derek Sutton is nowhere to be found. The money's gone. She laughed bitterly. $3.6 million. Gone. My dream home that I'll never be able to afford again. Sitting on land I can't keep. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Are you really going to make me tear it down? I've been thinking about this for weeks. No, I'm going to buy it from you. She looked at me sharply. What? I'll pay you fair market value for the structure. Not what it costs you. I can't afford that. But what it's worth. Probably around $2 million. It'll drain my inheritance. But it seems like the right thing to do. Tears welled in her eyes. Why would you do that? Because you were a victim too, I said. And because my grandfather always said this land was meant to bring peace, not pain. Patricia covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I was so horrible to you. I threatened you. I tried to destroy your reputation. You were scared and desperate, I said. People do terrible things when they're backed into a corner. She looked at me for a long moment. I don't deserve this. Maybe not, but it's what I'm offering anyway. 6 months after that, I stood on the dock of what was now my home, watching the sun set over the Montana mountains. Patricia had taken the money and moved to California to start over. The local newspaper ran a story about resolution and forgiveness that made me uncomfortable but seemed to mean something to the community. My grandfather had left me more than land. He'd left me a choice about what kind of person I wanted to be. I chose mercy over revenge. And standing there with the lake breeze on my face, I finally understood what he'd been trying to teach me all along. Some victories are worth more than money. Some battles are won by walking away. And sometimes the right thing to do costs everything you have, but it's worth every penny. The water sparkled in the fading light, and for the first time since that phone call months ago, I felt